Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, How to Manage the Challenging Employee. Our presenter today is Maureen Marfell, the HR Services Director here at 501c Services. I am Sonia Llewellyn, the Director of Program Development for 501c Services. And before we jump into our webinar presentation, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our organization. 501c Services is a 40-year-old company that provides HR services and unemployment outsourcing to over 3,000 nonprofits worldwide. Our programs include the 501c Agencies Trust, which offers a comprehensive suite of risk management services and tax avoidance solutions for our 501c3 nonprofit members. We also provide or have the 501c HR Services program, which is a confidential resource. We are not a call center. We are very hands-on, very high touch, and it's available to help walk nonprofits just like yours through difficult personnel issues. Many of you on today's webcast are already working with us, and I thank you very much for doing so. So quickly, I'm going to get the housekeeping out of the way so Maureen can get started, but all of you are on mute. However, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So please ask questions throughout as things come up for you, and I will be monitoring the question box, and Maureen will answer questions throughout because we're hopeful that you will engage with us so that we can have a more robust conversation. This webcast is certified for HRCI and SHRM credits. We also have a certificate of participation that is also available. There will be a survey that will pop up when we close things out, as well as that survey will be in the follow-up email. In the survey, you will be able to request any and all certificates, as well as have an opportunity to give us some feedback on how we did. We do read all your comments and suggestions, and through your constructive feedback, we do make improvements. So we welcome it all. Thank you. That's it for me for now, so I'm going to turn things over to Maureen. Maureen.
Yes, hello everyone. You know what? I'm not seeing my slides, so is there a reason?
Did you share your screen?
Let me see. I'm not used to doing it this way, so let me go in there. Okay, I've just shared my screen and I don't see the slides. Should I bring up the slides myself or should I have them? Yeah, okay, let me do that. Sorry. I'll be real quick here, for sure. Here we go. There we go. Thank you everyone for joining me today. I hope to help you out with that challenge we all have right now, that challenge of employees that have been really hard to deal with. Supervising, I think we would all agree, is never easy, but some employees make it particularly difficult. And these challenging employees can try your patience and drain a lot of your time and energy. So to turn things around, it takes skillful management and patience. So today I hope to talk about the types of problems you probably face with that challenging employee and provide you with some effective supervisory strategies for handling this difficult employee. So the objectives of today's webinar are how to identify the challenges associated with supervising those difficult employees, how to manage your own feelings effectively, and how to create that positive work environment for everyone, and focusing on problems, not personalities, and how to respond positively to those challenging employees. So I have a little quiz here, true or false, to start out with. So, is this one true or false? Firing an employee is usually the best way to deal with a challenging employee. If you'd like to answer, appreciate it. To let me know what you think, if this is true or false. One of the biggest problems with challenging employees is they can be uncooperative. Employees may be difficult at work because they're dealing with a health or personal issue at home. And you should always respond positively to challenging employees. So what do you think here? And I'll go through each one. You know, is it true or false?
Well, it looks like you've got a lot of folks that say the first one is false.
True. I mean, yes, the first one is false.
And then for the second, all right, so it looks like for number two, we have true.
Yes, absolutely.
And employees may be difficult at work because they're dealing with health. That looks like more trues. And your fourth one is you should always respond positively to challenging employees, and some say false and some say true. So we've got a comment here, or a question. It says, how do you deal with an employee who fails to self-reflect and considers themselves the victim? Oh, great question.
Okay. Okay. Why don't I go through all of these right now?
Perfect. That sounds good.
Help answer that question. Number one, of course, firing employee, and that we wouldn't be here today if we thought that was the only way to deal with the challenging employee. So that's definitely false. One of the biggest problems with challenging employees is they can be uncooperative. Well, yeah, that's what we're talking about, and we're going to find out how to deal with that. And employees may be difficult at work, and this is so true right now. It's been a hard time for everybody in the last year and a half, and they could be dealing with a health or personal issue at home. But that's what we're going to find out, and then we will find out if there's a way we can help them out and accommodate them. And then the last one, you should always respond positively to challenging employees. Yeah, absolutely. As hard as that might be, and that is difficult, and we're going to talk about that further. It is something that we always want to do with our employees. So
Maureen,
can I have that question? Yeah.
Yes. It's a great question. So it says, how do you deal with an employee who fails to self-reflect and considers themselves the victim?
Well, and you may have already done that, so I hope I answer your question to the way that will be helpful. You talk to them and communicate and share with them, you know, just what you said, that I'm not sure you understand how you're coming through to me as your supervisor and to your fellow employees and to the rest of the group. These are the things I've observed, and let's talk about this. I want to hear why you're feeling that way. Why are you feeling the victim? Because you know what you may find out through this that you didn't know before. Maybe you're going to find out this employee has felt like she or he has been bullied in the workplace or harassed. Not that you want to hear that, but it could be, or they're going through some problems. And so it's all in the dialogue and talking with that employee. I hope that helped out. And we'll be talking about some things. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard thing to deal with. Some people never do the self-reflecting. Now you have another question, right, and maybe you're going to get into this in a little bit. I'll read you the question, and then if you want to delay it, The question
Yeah.
is, how do you deal with the employee who does just the minimum required, and you suspect they have extra time, but they say they're too busy to take on tasks you think they have time for?
Okay. Yeah, that can be the challenging employee, or you're just having a performance issue with someone. You know, you are the person who manages this employee, the supervisor. And once again, it all comes into communication. And initially, I would say maybe you're just having a conversation with them, or you're going to have to go to the next step in putting a performance plan together. But you need to be very clear with them your concerns about that, them not, maybe perhaps not following directives from you, and why that's a problem. And it's just bringing out the employee and finding out why, you know, they're not doing their job correctly, or you have noticed that things have not gotten done, and give them examples of reports perhaps that they haven't delivered to you on time. And we will be talking about other things as I go along. But I truly think it's always in the conversation you have with the employee. And, you know, maybe it's not going to work out. So you're going to have to go to another step and through the process and the discipline process. You might have somebody that has a tendency to be not wanting to do the job correctly. So that becomes another issue for you. And they may not be working out as an employee. And I just want to throw something in here right and now that as we go along, I will be sharing more of how to deal with that challenging employee. But I hope that answers your question. Once again, it's just in how you have that conversation with the employee. But still may not fix it. But you document, make sure you all document those conversations, and that you have shown that you tried to help the employee out, and that you've been very direct with them of what you expect.
That's great. We do have some more questions, but I'm going to hold off so that you can proceed.
Yeah.
So I want to reassure you that I want to reassure everybody that we will get to your questions. So I'm going to let Maureen proceed.
I'm so happy you're being so very interactive, because that's what we want. So thank you. And I don't know why I'm having this problem in my slides today. Here we go. Doesn't want to move forward. Sorry about that. Okay, let's try this again. Here we go. Sorry. Okay, let's talk about the challenges you may face. I'm going to start that out with see if these resonate with you. You might, for instance, need to be prepared to deal with people who complain, goof off, or frequently are absent or late. You refuse to cooperate with you. We just talked about that. And their coworkers break the rules, have a bad attitude, think they know more than anybody else, including you, spread rumors, and display anger. So these are certainly factors to consider as I discuss the next slide. That difficult employee may also not be productive and can impact the productivity of others if they're too busy doing other things, such as seeing things negatively. They put a negative spin on everything management does, including important changes, decisions, actions, or plans. They're eroding other employees' support and creating a climate that expects failure. They're undermining your authority and are creating a hostile work relationships and wasting everybody's time on senseless arguments and conflicts. Does this all sound familiar? And they're making others look bad to make themselves look good. Of course, this kind of behavior is definitely counterproductive. and sometimes destructive. And it damages morale, and it makes it tough for you, the supervisor or manager, to lead your work group to ensure continued productivity. And now I'm going to send it out to you if you want to respond. Think about other ways difficult employees under your supervision have created challenges for you and their coworkers. And even share with us if you've had success and how you've dealt with that. So I'll give a few moments for that.
So we have a nice response. Somebody says, yes, you must know some of my coworkers. This person faces a lot of these issues.
Oh yeah.
So we have a question. Somebody said a lot of gaslighting. Very true. So what is the challenges? A lot of questions coming in. Let's see. How do you get the troubled employee to open up after they close up when you attempt to have a conversation with them?
I think once
Patience.
again, patience, I have to say that's pretty frustrating. That's not unusual though, because you know that's why we're calling them the difficult employee or challenging. They close up when you try to talk to them. This would be something that if I was on the hotline or talking to someone and counseling them, I would ask a lot of questions, you know, what's been going on with them? Have they changed over the past few months since you hired them or the past year? You know, perhaps they're going through some personal issues. You don't want to, there's nothing wrong with saying, gee, Sam, you've really changed over the last few months. You don't seem willing to talk to me. I do have concerns. You know, I'd like to work this out with you. These are the things I've appreciated you've done. So maybe it's bringing somebody out like that.
Right.
If this is their personality, I don't know what to tell, you know, you just have to finally document your concerns about that and what this behavior is causing in the workplace and for others. So then it really gets into the discipline.
Yeah. So then another comment is take their complaints to the next level of management, who then sends it back to me or to this person. They share private conversations. Oh, this person shares private conversations with others, their problem employee. Somebody says, definitely agree that clarifying required job tasks helps. This can at least help you get the minimum requirements from the employee or a clear reason to let them go. Very good comment. So somebody else,
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody else says,
Absolutely.
I manage 3 staff. I have a staff who has emergency after emergency. And when we have talks, there's another emergency on top of the previous. It's been like this since they started. I am trying to find a balance on supporting them, but also setting boundaries. Any tips?
Well, the first thing is you're doing it right. You're trying to figure it out and ways to help them. And I always say the clarity is sitting down and documenting with them. You know, here I've talked to you several times about my concerns, about how you're reacting, and, you know, give them the examples, and, you know, this really does need to change. Let's talk further. You can even put something in writing to me. Why do you think you're reacting this way? You know, to explain every time we have a conversation. It never addresses what really needs to happen in the organization and what we expect. I always hear something different, and this is why this is problematic. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that
that's very difficult. Yeah.
That like Maureen is saying that, and sometimes with this question, this situation, sometimes you just have to say enough is enough. The job isn't getting done. And so perhaps you offer a leave of absence, right?
Yeah, that can sometimes work. Sometimes you have to finally say too, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying this. really, do you want to work here? I don't understand. You don't seem to be happy and understand what the job is and what we expect. Still want to try to work this out, but really think about it.
And so somebody else offered a bit of advice here. They
Good.
say, I would not have a conversation unless it is tied to their job description. Clarity in what the ask is. So wanting to find out more of what are they asking for, or are they just always gone because they have an emergency? And are the work hours no longer working for you? That's for an example. So somebody else has offered some nice feedback.
Yes, right.
All right. We'll let you get on to your next slide.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. I love it when it works out this way. So thank you for sharing. Okay, we've been sort of talking about this. I never want to fire people. I'm sure none of you do either. But hey, why not just fire difficult employees? Yeah, let's just deal with it and get rid of the person. It seems like the logical answer sometimes, and sometimes it may be your only option, but more often it's a short-sighted approach. And why? Well, for several important reasons. Even the most difficult employee, and I really believe in this, can be turned around with some patience and the right approach. By firing, you really could be depriving yourself in the organization of someone with a lot of potential. And often these difficult people are bright, talented, and capable. I'm going to give an example, not to pick on a development director, but all employees are important, but the development director that you have, she's a challenge for you. And you know what? She's great. She brings in the funding. She's great with your funders and does an excellent job. But you know what? You're the supervisor. She's rude to you. She doesn't want to have conversations at times and talk with you about other ideas. She's not nice to the employees around her, her peers, and she may even have a couple of people reporting to her. She's awful. You don't have to tolerate that. That's not what you're all about as an organization. And you want everyone to be treated well. And that needs to be explained to that person, doesn't it? You can tell her, you're great. We love what you're doing for us. But, the part of our culture is for us to be respectful to everyone and give her examples of how she has not been that way. And that can't be tolerated. Maybe you even have to send her to training in a training program about maybe her own supervision of people or how to treat people better. So that happens. And it's hard because you don't want to lose somebody that really has been doing the job for you, but they shouldn't be treating others poorly. You also have to consider the time and cost of recruiting. That's really hard right now anyway. Hiring and training a replacement. Don't rush the hire. In the long run, it's usually more cost effective to spend the time trying to turn that problem employee around. There's also the cost of the other cost of unemployment compensation benefits to take into account, or worse, the cost of fighting a discrimination or wrongful termination lawsuit. And you must also consider that employees who appear to be difficult may simply be having a personality conflict with a supervisor or with someone in their working environment. Now, this doesn't always work. I'm not a complete proponent of it, but sometimes a simple reassignment may solve the problem. Not always, but that's something else to think about. And ultimately, firing can upset other employees and affect morale, no matter who gets fired. So if you're having had to discipline or fire a difficult employee, also check to find out from human resources about the proper disciplinary and termination procedures. Very important to work with your human resources department. or the person who wears all the hats, including HR. So let's all begin with yourself. Take a look at this. Start by honestly examining your feelings about that difficult employee. Are you feeling angry at the employee? Are you discouraged at the situation? Would you like to get back at the employee for all the trouble he or she has caused you? Now, it's okay to be completely honest with ourselves. Nobody else has to know, but you do need to understand your real feelings towards the employee so that you can control them. Otherwise, they may sneak out in ways you may regret. And we're human beings, right? We can certainly feel the anger and the frustration of dealing with our employees at times. And we always have to take that deep breath and consider how we really want to approach that employee without showing that anger. You will also need to assess the situation honestly for yourself. And what do I mean by that? Have you been butting heads with this employee? Or perhaps you've let the employee get away with unacceptable behavior just because it's the easy way out. Please don't delay talking to that employee. It will only get worse, and hopefully maybe by early on you can change this person. When dealing with that challenging employee, you also need to make sure that your judgments about the employer are objective. What do I mean by that? I kind of skipped ahead on the slide, I'm sorry, on the point, but let's talk about that. That's important. You need to make sure that you're objective. Don't make judgments. Don't personalize it. Don't bring in personality. Bring in the facts of the situation and what it's causing. And make sure you're evaluating the employee's performance and behavior by truly objective standards. Or is there an element of subjectivity involved? So make sure you have clear examples of what the employees, what the employee is causing by being difficult. You know, how the treatment of others is a problem, and giving those true examples. And some of it may get into poor performance, or someone said earlier of how they deal with things with an employee was to look at their job description too. Do they really understand what their job is and what you expect from them? And could it be, and this happens to all of us, that your judgments about the employee have been clouded by the fact that you really don't like the person, or that she rubs you the wrong way, he or she rubs you the wrong way? Well, you don't have to like the person, right? You don't have to be friends. You have to be careful that doesn't cloud your judgment. But what you do is expect from them is to do the job and treat others. I always use the word respect, but so true. And to understand, this is not what our organization is about. We treat everybody kindly and with respect. And that's what we expect from you also. And then finally, you need to keep your emotions in check when dealing with a challenging employee. And what do I mean by that? Well, no matter how frustrated you may feel, remember your position and your professional responsibilities. So before interacting with them, you may need to take, I always use this, but it's true, I do it, a few deep breaths, or remind yourself that you're responsible for managing all your employees, the easy ones and the hard ones. So the bottom line is that if you're able to manage your own behavior in a positive and professional way, and I know you mean to, so don't let this person take you around the bend, you will have a much easier time managing the employee's difficult behavior by managing your own behavior in a positive and professional manner. Well, I've just talked about that. Keep those emotions in check. Not easy being a manager or supervisor, but that's really important for us. Now I'm going to talk about creating that positive work environment. So let's now consider the work environment and the effect that it can have on managing the challenging employees. You may be able to prevent some of the problems associated with that challenging employee simply by creating a positive work environment in which all employees can feel comfortable, valued, and productive. But how do we do this? Well, encourage mutual respect between coworkers, between your employees and you. With some difficult employees, you may need to take that a step further and refuse to allow disrespectful behavior. You're the role model for professional behavior. Show your employees by the way you treat them and how you want them to treat one another. Provide positive feedback, always very important, and praise at every opportunity. Because I'm sure that there's moments that you will want to let that employee know they've done a good job. Thank you for meeting with me one-on-one. You want to do that with your employees. It's good to meet with them one-on-one, whether it's weekly or every other week. It's a good thing to do. People need to know they're valued and appreciated. Some difficult employees may just be acting out because they don't feel that their efforts are sufficiently appreciated by you or the organization. These are just things to think about. Give employees adequate support and provide the resources they need to meet standards and requirements. Nothing will turn an employee bitter and dissatisfied faster than having struggled to do a good job without your support and the necessary resources. So I'm going to ask you, as our audience today, what does support look like to you? How do you provide that support that you want to share with everyone?
All right, so we're waiting for people to type in their answers here. We do have a question. That's a great question. And I think that Maureen will actually answer this. I'm going to ask it to her in a little bit as we get farther down the line, because it's about when enough is enough. But I think you talk about that later on in the presentation. All right. So your question, Maureen, was, what does support look like?
Yes.
And so we have some responses here. Kindness and compassionate directness.
Very good.
A safe environment to be whom you are, a place where an employee can share how they feel about the organization, or where am I? They're coming in fast and furious. Organization or you, even if it's a difficult supporting, it's a negative supporting staff during difficult decisions or cases. Somebody else says, ensure employees have adequate laptop monitors, basically tools to do their job, communicate information that affects their work and excites them about the organization's goals. Here's a good one, listening, active listening. Then another one, modeling behavior that you're looking for and being kind and encouraging. Somebody else says support looks like making yourself available and never making anyone feel like it's a hassle to meet with them. That's so important. Somebody else says, giving support based on employees and client needs. Another one says building, wow, they're still coming in, building healthy working relationships with them. So when you have to have that hard conversation, you have already established a healthy rapport. Somebody else says, have an open door. Someone else says, caring and kindness. Being open to talk even when the conversations are hard. Finding out how they're doing. Listening, validating their feelings, active listening. Somebody says, I want to work with all these people who are listening on this webinar. Yes, I love it.
No,
Yeah,
no.
showing empathy. Act as if you care about the person. It's so important. Somebody else says, clearly provide expectations and identify the right amount of goals for change. If we try to change too many things, we are all set up for failure. And then setting people up for success. Wow, great.
Wow, what great feedback. Thank you. I love the words listening, kindness, so important. I always use the word respect, but it's like making them they're part of your organization and making them feel that way and having, well, the right equipment too. I mean, such good feedback. Absolutely. I think most of you sound like you're definitely on the right track. I love the person who said, I wish I had all these people working with me. I love the feedback. Thank you for that. Most important. So I think, was there anything else, Sonia? Any other
I was going to say,
question?
we had 2 more pieces of feedback. Check on your workers every morning and every day, and at least 3-to-1 ratio of praise and correction. Oh, here's a really good one that's so important. And this goes back to engagement. Include them in certain meetings to get them involved and try to implement their ideas, or at least one of them. Great, great. All right, now you can move on. Well done, everybody. Thank you so much.
I just make one more comment. I know it's been so hard, a year and a half. I mean, I get many calls, and people are really suffering right now. And so all your comments are great, because I think we even need to go the extra step with that right now. I hear so much about employees who never had, such as mental disabilities or going through a really rough time. So I think the listening, making sure they understand, checking with them each day to find out how everything's going. I think all of that is the utmost so important. And I think the word kindness, I really love that. And I think that's very important. Always, but especially right now. So thank you. So we'll go on here.
I'm going to add one more to end this section, because I think that this is, somebody says, please and thank you go a long way.
Very, very true. Oh, what good responses. Thank you so much. So I'm going to talk about problematic behaviors right now. Which behaviors are problematic? So for each of these scenarios that I'm going to give, I will ask you, and you'll see this on the screen, of course, decide if you think you would need to take action to correct this certain behavior. The employee who comes in late every day but is not difficult to work with. An employee who questions a decision you made on a large project. Next one, an employee who refuses to cooperate with others in a group, stating that he or she would rather work alone. And the last one here, displays anger at employees from other departments when asked for information. So take a look at those. Once again, responses are nice. And right. I will go through each. Yeah, tell me which one.
Yeah, we've got some responses here. So somebody says, so she responded in order. So the first one, she says, yes, that is problematic. The second one is no. The third one is yes. And the fourth one is yes. Then somebody else says, the first isn't really problematic. The second is not problematic. The third one is problematic. And so is the fourth one. So that's somebody else's input. Somebody else says, they're all problematic. Then somebody else says, I'm most concerned about number 3 and number 4. The first two aren't as bad. So now, Maureen, you get to give us your professional opinion.
And I agree, but this will be what I feel with each one. The first one, that comes in late, that's not difficult to work with. Well, hey, that can be problematic. Excessive tardiness is a behavior that can lend itself to a poor work environment. So all employees need to be treated fairly, and if some employees are expected to be on time, this rule needs to apply to everyone. And perhaps you could speak to the employee about a different schedule. Maybe if you can accommodate that, that might be the problem. So that's the way of maybe taking care of that situation, but it needs to be addressed. I tell you, you can't ignore tardiness, and it's very important with consistency, and it really can affect departments. So you can merely have the conversation initially to find out why that employee is becoming habitually late, and why you're concerned about it and how it's affecting the group and getting the job done. So I do say that that is problematic. Number 2, an employee who questions decisions on a large project. Hey, actually not. In this case, no harm has probably been done, as long as the employee does not outwardly criticize or refuse to comply with your decision. Hey, it's okay that an employee questions the decision, and it's possible that the employee does not fully understand your decision, or perhaps has a different point of view that you did not consider. They might have a great idea. So you want your employees to question. You might not agree, and that's where you'll have the dialogue with them. The next one refuses to cooperate with others on a project or in a group, stating they would rather work alone. I've had really interesting feedback on this. I would say this behavior needs correcting. Working successfully usually involves getting along with coworkers, and you should explain that the project will not be a success unless all the team members work together effectively. I've had people come back on me saying, well, wait a minute, maybe this is someone who does work well on their own. They don't really need to work as a group. Yeah, of course, you look at the situation. I don't know how some of you would react to that, but certainly that could be problematic. But maybe there is someone who, well, I'm trying to think of a good example. There's not too many positions where a person is singular and does not work with others, but if you feel that's okay with a person, you have to take into account your own workplace. The last one, what if an employee displays anger at employees from other departments when asked for information? Well, we never should accept anger in the workplace, and this behavior, of course, needs to be corrected. And this employee needs to understand this, making it difficult for others to get their jobs done effectively, and can lead to decreased productivity and poor morale. And you really need to monitor anger in the workplace. I mean, we all get angry. You don't want to make too big a deal of it initially, but if it escalates, of course, immediate action needs to be taken, even suggesting counseling or anger management, or if you have an employee assistance program, because you don't want that to escalate. So that's my take on all of this. I don't know if you have any further questions about what we've just talked about.
You've got some really great comments here as you went along. So people said a lot of what you said, perhaps on the first one, changing somebody's hours, having that conversation, that tardiness impacts the morale of others. And then when it came to questioning decisions, that absolutely it's okay to question a decision as long as it's done in a professional manner, like you said. Somebody else said, yes, I think it's important to encourage people to give different perspectives from yours. Who wants a bunch of yes people? And then on number 3, I feel like number 3 definitely could be situationally dependent. Some folks do work better by themselves, or maybe their group isn't the best. Then there's a question here. It says, from an HR standpoint, do we need a performance plan in order to suggest counseling? And my answer would be no, but Maureen, what about you?
No, you may be having that initial conversation with a person. I don't think you jump ahead necessarily to a performance plan, because sometimes the conversation can work it out, right? If you recommend counseling or an employee assistance program, and just make notes for yourself that you've done that, though, in your own documentation.
Great. All right.
Okay, well, here we go again. I'm going to talk about now, I'm getting over to my next slide, which sometimes, okay. Focus on problems, not personalities, and I do think this is so important when dealing with that difficult employee. So when dealing with the difficult or challenging employees, it's important to focus on the work-related problems they create, not on their personalities. Don't get into a personal, saying, I can't stand you, you have a terrible attitude. I know most of you wouldn't say that, but I'm just making a point there. Be very subjective in your documentation when you get to that point. This is often hard to do because some people, of course, just make your life difficult. But it's essential if you're going to succeed in managing them effectively. And here are some suggestions. First of all, take that step back and put on that professional hat you have. Don't think as you, the person. Think of you as the supervisor. Focus on specific behavior or attitudes that are causing problems. Identify specific reasons why this behavior or attitude is a problem. For example, productivity or morale issues. Think solely in terms of the job and the work. Be objective and avoid subjective judgments about the person. Try not to get hung up on personality traits. And very important, write yourself a brief report about the situation. Only include documented facts, no opinions, theories, or personal issues. So seeing the situation on paper can help you identify and objectify the key problems. And then you can start dealing with them one by one. And I know a lot of you are managers and supervisors today, not necessarily human resources, but I know we have a lot of human resources professionals on the line today. So I'm going to tell you, supervisors and managers, always check with human resources to help you through, your documentation. Or, I think it's wonderful to work together, and I'm sure that most of you do that. Now, lack of cooperation, that's what we're dealing with, definitely, with the challenging employees. One of the biggest problems with that challenging employee is that person can be uncooperative and unwilling or unable to work productively with others. So just some ideas to encourage cooperation, and perhaps you're already doing this. Explain what you expect explain that you expect your employees to cooperate with you, with one another, and with people in other parts of the organization. Tell employees that cooperation is one of the points on which, and you can do this if you choose, I think it could work out. Tell employees that cooperation is one of the points on which their performance will be evaluated, and that raises and promotions will depend in part on a cooperative attitude and behavior. Whenever another idea, whenever an employee fails to cooperate, take that person aside and point out that he or she is not cooperating. Then identify the specific problems created by this lack of cooperation. So deal with that specific problem. Very good to do this. in the interaction with the employee. Remind the employee that he or she is part of a work team and that cooperation is essential to effective teamwork. And then monitor to see if the situation improves. And the next areas that I'm going to talk about are for leading to good documentation. Let's face it, this is what always occurs for all of us. We need to document well. I truly believe initial conversations may take care of everything, but I'm not going to go too much into this, but first of all, we already talked about how it's important to monitor attendance problems. Make sure you review your attendance policy with the employee if you have a problem there. Discuss the problem with the employee, of course. Explain the consequences and document the problems, what their attendance is causing. I bring this into the challenging employee because many times you see that they tend to not get to work on time. They're kind of their own person, right? And they don't understand that that's a problem in the workplace. Or maybe you do work out a different schedule for them. And you may have to apply what I call progressive discipline, which many of you may have in place in your policies. I won't get into that too much, but things may need to be documented. And then many difficult employees may also have a poor performance problem. It's always easier to really talk about the performance issues, but you don't ignore that they're causing problems for others and are being very challenging for you in regards to how they treat others. They may have inadequate skills or knowledge that you need to help out with. There may be some workplace conflict that's occurring for them that you're not aware of. They may feel like they're being treated unfairly by somebody, their coworker. Now, poor attitude, we have to be careful how we use that word. That there's a possibility that that employee doesn't want to change. In order to help the employee to change what we call their poor attitude in a positive way, the employee must be first willing to change, of course. Otherwise, your efforts will be futile. So we really have to say that. I mean, it doesn't always work. I would say most of the time it works to turn someone around. But, they need to know what that poor attitude means objectively and how you don't see things are going really well right now and you want to see a change, but they have to be the ones willing to change that. Personal issues are so real always, but even more so now. Performance problems on the job might also be a result of the employee's personal problems. And so an employee who appears to be difficult at work might just be having problems in other areas of life, which could be spilling over into the workplace, such as, health problems, personal, financial, or family issues. If you have an employee assistance program, that's really helpful to refer that employee to. I really tout employee assistance programs, and they even offer helping someone with financial or family issues also. Family, they may need to go on the leave. I'm sure I'm talking about family medical leave or whatever leave policies you have in place for them, or personal leave. We don't like to tolerate anger, but last but not least, when dealing with that challenging employee, you have the problem of anger. While it's normal for people to get angry occasionally, some employees seem to be angry all the time. So what can you do there? Well, talk to the employee, communicate, and try to find out what's causing all the anger. Explain that this behavior is upsetting coworkers and making it difficult for people to work with the employee. If the employee is unable to control his or her anger or fails to understand the problem, recommend professional help, and perhaps your EAP, Employee Assistance Program. And finally, remember that you have a responsibility, I know you all know that, to provide your employees with a safe work environment. And so I don't know, we don't want the anger to escalate, but if it does, like making threats or acting out physically, of course, needs to be disciplined appropriately and under your violence prevention policy. And a lot of times, of course, it could be means for immediate termination. So make sure you know the requirements of your organization's violence prevention policy concerning employees who threaten or commit acts of violence in the workplace. That's the worst case scenario, and I venture to say, hopefully that doesn't happen. I'm going to give a couple of examples of documentation practices. Keep in mind, these are just snapshots, but first of all, refrain from using subjective comments and making conclusions. Don't use subjective language, and reference specific facts, not feelings or opinions. Here's a couple examples. You're not focusing on your program or on your work. What does that mean? You need to define it better in your documentation. Mary, your last two program reports, give the dates on June 10th and 20th, had 4 major errors. Then you'll go on to show Mary where the errors exist. Let Mary know why that's a problem and how to improve it and how she intends to improve. Of course, you're listening to Mary of why that may be occurring. Don't just tell somebody they're not a team player. Explain to them what that means. Such as Judy was told to prepare an estimate of costs by August 10th. She did not finish in time. And what did this cause? Well, this prevented others who needed the information from completing their parts of the budget. Well, yeah, this employee, Mark, you're irritable and refuse to communicate. Well, what does that mean? How do you need to let Mark understand why you have said that? So you say to Mark, you locked yourself in your office and refused to respond. I know that sounds strange, but as I always tell people, this is a true story. You need to let Mark know why that's a problem, and say, Mark, are you aware that you're doing that? I think that's how you would start the conversation out, and why it's a problem, and how can we change what's bothering you? And this could be an instance of someone having some personal problems. So that needs to be dealt with. Your abuse of sick leave causes your department problems. So as you see here, it's better to define what that means. The number of sick instances have disrupted the workflow in our department and caused unscheduled overtime by others to cover your workload. In addition, a temporary worker was assigned to your area in order to guarantee the deadline for the project. And just one more example here. The bad attitude. Well, we can't just say that, can we? We need to give Brian more information. Brian, you seldom acknowledge that you understand an assignment by saying yes or when do you want it done. Whenever I tell you that a particular task has not been completed properly, you contradict me and try to change the subject. Brian, are you aware that you do that? And if you are, why do you do it? And let me explain to you why that's a problem in your documentation and in your conversation with Brian. So I always say effective documentation. I'm always going to bring up documentation about everything. As you all know, it's very important. It's always the who, what happened, where it happened, when it happened. Always be specific and direct with your documentation and give examples. Very important. I'm going to ask you to look at what you believe is wrong with that memo, this memo. To Meg from Marty, a memo of warning. Meg has become very uncooperative lately. She has questioned my decisions and the decisions of the organization, implying bad faith. I have spoken to Meg before, but to no avail. This time I warned Meg if she has a problem with one of my decisions, she must bring it to my attention in a professional manner. Unprofessional outbursts will no longer be accepted. I'm handing this over to you to tell me what you believe is wrong with this memo, and then I'll talk about it.
Okay, we've got some feedback already. So
Wow.
it's missing a date for when things happened or when the previous conversations happened. The memo is subjective and not clear. The wording, if she has a problem, is not kind and it's not going to give Meg a comfortable environment to respond. And it doesn't say what was the uncooperative behavior? What did it look like? What was it? Unprofessional outbursts will no longer be accepted. Those are never acceptable. True, very true. And then somebody says there's no examples, no dates, and what do you mean by a professional manner?
You bet. I know.
Great feedback. Yep.
Yes, and not very respectful to Meg, is it? Why would Meg really want? She doesn't understand what's going on here. It's terrible. But it's funny. You see something like this, and you say, "Oh, okay, he put something together for Meg, Marty," and then all of a sudden you take a look at it closer and say, "What the heck? This is not good." And I really think it's so disrespectful. Meg. Anyway, great. Oh, you guys did great. Thank you for the feedback.
The fact that it's to her personnel file and not to her.
Oh, right. Exactly. Yeah. So thank you. I don't know how are we doing on time here. I think
we are doing okay. We're about at the end of our proposed time, and we want to. So Maureen's going to finish up, and we will. For those of you who need to log off, we understand. We want to be respectful of your time. We will stick around. We'll continue, and we will hang out for questions. So I will please keep going.
Okay, I'm actually I don't want you to feel I'm rushing through this. I'm going to kind of go past these exercises. They're good, and you'll have them in the slides. But where I really want to go is, to sum this up for all of us. And you've been a great audience. I thank you so much for that. I really enjoy having the interactions. So excuse me for this one. Okay. This is what we've been talking about all along, responding positively to the challenging employee. And just to go, that's always the step one in dealing effectively with your challenging employee, is to always respond positively and fairly. And that's what you've all been saying. So even in the face of a negative behavior and attitude, always explain your concerns. Give specific examples. Offer suggestions for changing the behavior and be open to the employee's ideas. Oh, so important. Avoid criticizing or judging. None of us like to feel that. Don't blame or criticize the employee personally. Just focus on problems and solutions. Stay focused on the subject. Don't get sidetracked or let the employee get sidetracked onto unimportant issues. Be firm. Use statements instead of questions. For example, you've missed your last 3 deadlines. Please explain why this is happening. State your willingness to help solve problems. Agree on an action plan for improvement. Tell the employee you would like to speak again in a few days or weeks to see how he or she is progressing and to see if there's anything you might be able to do to help improve performance. Always consider the employee side of the story. The employee may be feeling underappreciated or unfairly treated. Have a legitimate concern or question. The employee may have a legitimate concern or question about a job or procedure. That employee may be experiencing stress or difficulties you don't know about, and having legitimate issues with you or other employees that need to be addressed that you were not aware of.
Maureen,
Yep.
Maureen, before you go on, there's been a couple people who have asked if you need to log off now, please feel free to do so. The survey there will be a link for the survey in the follow-up email. So you will have a chance to give feedback and to ask for your certification. So I want to let you know that.
Oh, great. Yes, of course. I'm coming to, I just have a couple more things to share with you to summarize what we've been talking about today. You know, some considerations. We always want to give our employees' concerns a fair hearing, investigate the matter completely before making any judgments, follow procedures carefully when investigating problems that might have legal implications, such as complaints about safety violations, harassment or discrimination, and of course always try to look at all the evidence objectively. And here's some follow-up. Make sure the problem has been solved, give that positive feedback we've been talking about, point out remaining problems, and continue to monitor the situation. And at the end, folks, just important points to remember: never ignore a problem just because an employee is difficult to deal with. Begin to solve the problem by managing your own feelings about the challenging employee. Create that positive work environment in which all employees can perform well. Focus on problems, not personalities, when dealing with challenging employees, and use positive strategies to change negative behavior and attitudes. And I've come to the end. I really appreciate all of you. You've been a great audience. Loved all the feedback. I hope you found this helpful today. I love working with all the nonprofits, and we love the program that we do, HR Services. It's been very helpful, we believe, over the years for people who have used the service. And thank you so much. And I'm waiting to hear if I have any other questions.
Okay, so I just want to say to everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope that we've given you an idea or two to use in your organization, or to spark conversations surrounding how to manage your employees. Somebody had made a comment. Let's see, how very informative, thank you. It says, these are great ideas to be a proactive manager as well, whether the employee becomes challenging or not. So thank you for that feedback. So next month, we will be debuting our newest webinar, The Value of Cultivating Culture, and that will be on August 11th. So we look forward to seeing you there. And if you'd like more information on how to become a subscriber to our HR services program, please feel free to contact me at my email address, which is slewellyn, so that's SLLEWELLYN @501c.com. So thank you again to all of you who are already working with us. We appreciate that, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you, everybody. And lot of people saying thank you, Maureen. So well done, and thank you so much.
You bet, Sonia.
I just want to remind everybody that there will be when I log off and close this out, the survey will pop up. If you've got to go and you don't want to wait, there will be a link in a thank you email, and you'll be able to request your certificates there and to give us feedback. So again, thank you, everybody. And there is a recording, and it will be available to you. Crystal will help you with that in getting the recording available to you. So yes. So thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.